All right, everybody, we finally have our guest here. We are joined by the one and only Suzu, and you're currently in Singapore, right? Okay, cool. Yeah, it's great to have you. Sorry that I mixed up the time a little bit, but it's good that we made it work. You were doing puzzles before? Yeah, I wish my chat. Oh, sorry. I need to make sure that. My bad. Sorry. We're gonna reintroduce him because I accidentally had the audio muted, and somehow, even though I'm the streamer, I'm always the one who has the technical difficulties. But we can hear you now, and Suzu is being a trooper. He's actually holding his microphone because he couldn't find his stand. All right,
Be
well,
fun.
Sue, it's great to have you on stream. For those of you who don't know him, he is one of the most famous crypto options traders. He's also a shareholder of Deribit, which is today's stream sponsor, and they're one of the largest crypto options exchanges in the world. He also has a very popular crypto podcast for those of you who want to learn more called Uncommon Core. And you play chess as well, right?
Yeah, I learned as a kid, but I didn't really play that much. My dad kind of stopped playing with me after I was a little bit better than him, and he wasn't very good.
Oh,
But I
really?
picked it
That
up again. Yeah, I picked it up again about a year ago, and I just love it. It's a lot of fun. So take weekly lessons from a guy and play some people here over the table as well. So it's great.
I also learned from my dad, but whenever he would beat me, he would brag about it. And one time, he made me write him a long essay about how he'll always be a better chess player than me.
Wow,
I think I was 8 years old, but he still has that paper to this day, and he likes rubbing it
that's
in my
crazy.
face. Yeah,
That's crazy.
but it's funny that your dad just straight up didn't want to keep playing with you after you beat him. It's definitely competitive though. But I guess one of the more interesting topics of today is if there's any similarities or any advantages you think chess players might have into going to something like crypto options trading. But I guess before we get into that, maybe you can talk a little bit about what crypto options trading are for my audience so that they get familiar with it.
Yeah, sure. So I guess um, Deribit is a crypto options exchange. It's the leading one, about 90% market share. And basically, you can use Bitcoin, Ether, as well as USDC collateral to trade options um, on uh, on these assets. So you can do things like sell calls if you think the price will not go beyond a certain price by a certain date. You can sell puts if you think that the price won't go below a certain price, and kind of all combinations in between. And so I think it's really good tools for people to use. Generally, like you mentioned before, like it's more advanced.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's good for people who are trying to really make trading their career. So
Right.
it's a good framework for understanding the entire market as a whole. Because with crypto trading, what you find is that you have different types of participants. Some they'll come and just more of a gamble, bet if it's going to go up or down within the next 2 hours, and then some that want to do it more as a skill, like chess or like poker. So
Right. And I think one common misconception people have about crypto trading or trading in general is that it's more considered gambling because if you don't put in the time, it's something that requires quite a lot of expertise to end up turning into a career, right?
yeah, definitely. And there have been a lot of individuals who have made it their career, and um, you know the similarities to chess are it's you have to have discipline, right? I mean, chess is one
Mm-hmm.
of those games. It's similar to poker as well, where over longer periods of time, you have to be very self-disciplined. You have to really put in the work on your whole game and everything you do. And it's also incremental as well. You can see your own progress. You have to grade yourself every day. And that's like something that it's often quite lacking today in today's world. So I think people who do grow up with that mentality and who do really put it on themselves, I think it gets you halfway there already. Because there's a lot of people in the markets, they'll just come in that they want to get, like there's a saying that everyone gets what they want to get out of the market. So if they want to gamble, they come in and gamble. If they want excitement, they get excitement. But yeah, I think in general, it's something that you can definitely anyone can learn over a longer period of time, but you have to put in the work.
Yeah, and I agree with chess players being used to put in the work, which is actually one reason why a lot of people stop playing chess because it gets harder and harder to progress the closer you
Yeah.
get to the top. And I remember in college, the chess club would always get these big financial institutions coming in to recruit. Jane Street was always there, and quite a few of my friends that ended up going to trading and did very well, and they would often talk about the similarities between what they had learned through chess. And I know that you actually started in traditional finance, right?
Yeah. So when I started Three Arrows, we were trading mainly foreign exchange,
Mhm.
emerging market foreign
And I'll
exchange.
pause
That
for a
was
second.
2012.
You guys, he also founded Three Arrows, which is one of the largest crypto trading firms in the world, if I'm saying that properly.
Yeah. 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 So we started in foreign exchange. Started in San Francisco, moved it to Singapore a year later in 2013, and just doing emerging market speculation. So did pretty well during 2014 with the Russian invasion, and then later on with just various geopolitical events, and also with doing arbitrages. At some point, kind of just went fully into crypto, as started to see that the world would demand a alternative opt-in parallel system of finance and of culture as well, really. And I think now we're really starting to see the kind of benefits from that system that everyday people can get, right? Whether it's creators who can interact with their fans more closely, whether it's people sending peer-to-peer money to each other, whether it's storing value as well. So I think have been kind of all in crypto in terms of our business since 2017,
Hmm.
and that involves both as a Deribit shareholder, but also as just investing in early stage, middle stage, liquid tokens, liquid coins, so kind of across the whole stream. So.
And when you were getting started, since a lot of people here might be thinking about it from a much more beginner level, what were some of the tools that were helpful for you? Because, for example, I know that Deribit Insights, they published a course on YouTube that helps people get into trading. But as we mentioned, you really need to put in a lot of hours if you're going to end up being a successful trader.
Yeah, I think definitely start from first principles. Make sure you understand kind of the broad theses that people have in the space and what kinds of things will accrue value. So there's so much content on the internet these days. I had this tweet the other day saying, everything's free now. Education is so cheap compared to how it used to be. And that's one of the beautiful things about crypto, which is that everyone started from no knowledge and now we have, you know, various things we know today. So, use crypto Twitter, read as much as you can, digest as much. You don't have to act immediately. You can just first see how much you can absorb. And then you can also see where you fit in as well. All right. Some people are very good at project building and then just holding as well. And they've done really quite well just with that mentality. Other people, they are quite good at watching the order books all day and then seeing what's happening and then get into that mentality. And I think there's the beautiful thing about crypto that I've seen is that like since 2018, 2019, the people who have really believed in it, there's been such strong rewards for just believing in it from a core level. Even if they weren't the best traders, they still made it because they generally believe that we will go somewhere quite great with it. And so I think having that as like a baseline and then building skills on top of it has generally worked for a lot of people.
That sounds like what I did. I didn't really know how to trade. I got into crypto while I was still in college in 2016, and I just bought and held because I realized that I wouldn't be able to put in the amount of time it would require to actually be able to do better in like any kind of trading. Which, on that note, you were talking about how there's a lot of different versions of trading. What is the difference between traditional trading and options trading?
Um, I think it's kind of hard to distinguish per se. I mean, options trading, you generally are betting more often on how much things will move and how quickly they will do so. So, like a great example of a big opportunity in crypto was in 2020 after the DeFi summer. There were a lot of yields you could get on DeFi farming with dollars. So the really big trade then that people did was they would sell their Ether for USD and then farm, but then they would buy Ether call options. And they would use sort of their farming profits to buy these call options, and then they would keep their Ether upside and get even more upside if it went up while they were making a lot of yield in dollars. So there's kind of these combination trades that can occur in the markets at times that can give you a very asymmetric risk reward. And we saw that in like Q4 2020 as well in Bitcoin, where Michael Saylor came out and said he's going to buy all the Bitcoin that he can, and people were buying call options. And at that time, like because the market was going to break the previous all-time high from 2018, that what you saw was that the people who bought these calls, they were able to make 50x, 100x within a relatively short period of time because they just were kind of riding on the sailor bid and they were riding on the all-time high breakout. So as it went from 10K to 36K. So I think options give you that kind of managed downside and asymmetric upside that is really good for if you have high conviction that it'll break out and you can bet that. At the same time, you can also use it to harvest for yield. Like if you already are long coins and you don't think it will go over a certain price or you would sell there anyways, then it's great to sell calls there as well. So, we saw those guys do really well after sort of the April high where people thought it's not going to break 60K, so I'll just keep selling these calls all day. And when you sell a call and it doesn't go through the price, you receive the premiums. So kind of in options, you get a lot more room to play with. You get more tools in your toolkit, as opposed to just saying, is it going to go up this much or down this much on a given day?
Got it. And yeah, I have seen options trading referred to as also a hedge to your other financial portfolio. How would you think about it for beginners as compared to their overall portfolio, or any tips that you have for people just starting out?
Yeah, I think, there are a lot of institutions that are selling puts now on Bitcoin and Ether because they just know it won't go to zero. And so they have this mentality of, if I get a dip, I will buy it anyway. So I might as well keep selling puts and rolling them because I'll get paid this premium. I'm essentially selling insurance for people that, let's say they're too long and they want some insurance, happy to sell them some puts. So I think selling puts is a great strategy. It's done extremely well the past few months because the price never goes down far enough that it really hits. At the same time, you keep getting paid these premiums. So it's just been incredibly profitable for people to sell puts in this environment because Bitcoin, it still holds the lows, Ether still holds the lows. It's just, it never dips as much as people think it will. Like everyone wants the March 2020 collapse. Everybody wants the, Q4 2018 collapse. Yeah, we don't see it, right? So these put sellers are just kind of minting money because the price is just at the sweet spot for them.
And to be even able to have these insights to begin with, I mean, people obviously have to be pretty well versed with the crypto industry. What about resources? Obviously, we're lucky to have you today on the stream. But what would you recommend for somebody who needs to even start learning the basics? Obviously, you have the internet, you have a ton of information available, but are there any resources that were your favorites or that you recommend?
Deribit's got a position builder that's interesting. So you can kind of load up positions that you might want to do and see the payout profiles and see how they fit. There's also a lot of content that Deribit Insights puts out on options color and what's happening. And I kind of just think that following smart people is always a good way to learn. When I first got into crypto, that's how I learned as well. Like I knew almost nothing, and just have to follow and usually I try to find people sort of the younger they are and the more sort of content they're putting out that's kind of you can't find anywhere else, then I'll try to follow that. So I think it's always hard to say where the new alpha will come from, but I think options trading itself is sort of a well-trodden road, and I think anyone can learn it, especially if you already have a good analytical background. And I think crypto markets are still quite inefficient because we're in the nascent days, and so there are often asymmetric opportunities, especially as the Deribit's launching altcoin options soon as well, where there are a lot of altcoins where if you just imagine like Solana, if you had bought calls on Solana last year, there'd be tremendous opportunities. Unfortunately, there were not at that time, but as there are more and more altcoins and you follow that community well, I think there are going to be great opportunities to buy calls on alts that already will go up 3x, and then you own the call, you can probably make 30x, something like that.
Yeah, these are definitely some really huge opportunities that are available for people who are willing to put in the time. What about risks and things that people should be careful about?
Yeah, so I think if you're getting started in markets in general, and you want to sort of invest, you have to put aside a large amount to just say, this is safe money that I don't touch. Like you don't want to bet your whole house on it. And also within crypto itself, most people cannot beat holding over the long periods of time because it's so volatile.
That was me.
and that like the fear and greed cycles are such that, it always looks the most bearish at the bottom and it always looks the most bullish at the top by definition. So people get really they get stuck in these kind of max fear, max greed. So I think definitely have a proportion that you hold as well and hold, generally you want to hold larger caps as opposed to small caps, because what we've seen in crypto is that many small caps die, but the large caps keep accruing network effects. So that's Bitcoin and Ethereum and some others. And then after that, you can kind of like then delve in and see like how much better do I understand what's happening here than other people, get active in the discords and get active in, trying to find, who's done well and try to see how they've done it, what kinds of things. I mean, the thing with crypto is that every generation I've seen people say there are no more opportunities. All the money has been made. And then the next month, like it's just not true, right? There's always like,
This
I mean,
also reminds me of how people always feel like they're too late to get into crypto.
exactly. I mean, as we've seen now with NFTs and like Bored Apes, I mean, that was what, like May 2021, right? So that's like not even a year ago. And these people are all, have done very well on Bored Apes.
Twitch
And
really
there's so
doesn't
many
like NFTs, so we should shy away from that topic.
We'll shy of that. But yeah, it's just crypto in general. It always offers opportunities because fundamentally the framework is different from traditional finance. The people who are the earliest are individuals who are just, in these communities. They're involved. They're helping to build them. And so I think there's almost no other opportunities anymore for young people. If you think about the traditional system, a lot of those jobs don't exist anymore in the white collar industries. And, housing prices are incredibly high versus income. So you get this system where young people need to build their own system to be able to opt out of what's happening. And I think that's why we're seeing so much interest in crypto now.
Well, I appreciate that answer, and I was also looking over at chat to see if anybody here had any interesting questions. So I'll keep spamming. I'll keep checking over there at the same time. But going a little bit back to the chess and crypto topic, have you seen a lot of crypto people who like playing chess? I mean, I'm asking that even though I know the answer. So I guess a better question is, why do you think so many crypto people are into chess?
I mean, crypto people generally more into coding, into computer internet culture as well. So I think chess is natural because it's such a pure game. I think poker is a little bit more, it's also popular, but it's a little bit more, it's a bit more corruptive because there's the element of gambling and the money losing and making, whereas chess is just like a very social, fun thing. At the same time, and like it's very accessible, right? Like anyone can learn the rules. It's fun at all levels. And in crypto, we do like the idea of like social competition, right? So it's like you win, lose, and it's also like a social thing. And so I think there's a lot of like values convergence as well. Like I've gotten my daughters to start learning chess at a young age, and it's just
How
like,
old is she?
my oldest is 5. My younger is 3. So the 3-year-old, we're not starting yet, but the 5-year-old, we've had her in something called chessat3.com. It's a New York program, and then we have her in a live class now, and it's really good because like at that age, kids don't have that many ways to focus and to learn something, and also be competitive and to have that. So I think, and it's a healthy kind of competition too, where it's not like societally prescribed per se, but it's more like a game that you get better and you see your self improvement. So it's more like inner motivation kind of competition, and crypto's all about that, right? Because everyone's journey has been very much both a combination of individual sort of effort as well as learning from other people. So I think that I've seen FTX sponsor a lot of chess as well now, and I think that it's kind of a great model because up until now chess hasn't had the ability to have as much sponsorship from stuff in the past, and now I hope we can do more and more.
Yeah, there's definitely been a lot of crypto sponsors coming into chess, and even Magnus Carlsen, world champion, he made some NFTs pretty early on when they were just starting to blow up. And it's very cool that your daughter is trying to learn chess at 3. The other day, I played against a 6-year-old girl who started playing at 3, and she was blitzing out theory. It was just very impressive to see how early these kids can start playing. But we also actually started getting some good questions from chat. So Grumpy the Penguin asked, how does trading crypto options differ from traditional stock options?
It doesn't really differ at all. I think it's kind of the same product, the same mechanisms, I guess. There are no earnings reports per se, so you don't have that. Whereas in stocks, people like to kind of think if the earnings will go up or down, or the catalyst. But in crypto, of course, we have our own catalyst, right? So we have things like the Ether, the merge, where there's a transitioning from proof of work to proof of stake. So that should be interesting because a lot of people who have complaints about Bitcoin environmental issues, I mean, I don't agree with them, but if they so choose, then they can decide they don't want to do Bitcoin and they can do Ethereum. That's up to them, right? But there are also other proof of stake coins out already as well. So I think, there's kind of options trading where in stocks you're also trading more against professionals, and that can be generally unprofitable. I mean, retail is historically very unprofitable in options trading, and all that profit goes to the market makers and the HFT firms because they have all the information as well, right? Because they, for instance, if retail might think the stock will go up a lot, but then the management may say at some price I will issue new shares and keep selling calls and keep selling stocks, like we saw with GME and AMC. And so because of the ability of a single party to issue more shares, that fundamentally changes the nature of how it will behave, right? Whereas in crypto, you don't have that, right? There's no CEO of Bitcoin that says, if the price is this high, I'm going to give myself 1 million more Bitcoin and then sell them on you or something. So that is an advantage that crypto has over, and sort of all crypto networks have over equities.
What about crypto whales in certain coins?
So there are definitely whales in various coins. And I think that kind of thing has also come through a proof of work, right? And what I mean by that is that everyone has had sort of an equal chance to think about Bitcoin, think about Ethereum, and then come to the realization. So, if someone, has X amount of Bitcoin, and I will generally understand how they managed to get to that point, right? Because think about it, despite, everyone having heard about Bitcoin for this long, you can't look around and, like your neighbor's got 1,000, he's got 10,000. That's not how it works, right? Even though everyone can imagine themselves having bought it at $1 or $10, that hasn't happened. And the reason is that they would have sold it if they didn't understand it, right? So if they bought it at $1 and it goes to $1.30, that looks really expensive now because you just bought it at $1, you make 30%, so you sell. I remember when Ether, the ICO came out, I didn't buy the Ether ICO, but I have some friends did. And when it went to $10, they were just like, this is an incredibly insane price. I'm going to sell it all. And at $20, the foundation sold a lot.
One of my close friends sold a ton at 40 before it spiked up in 2017.
Yeah. So, there's that proof of work that has made it very fair. And so the conviction of the remaining whales is actually extremely high. And I actually think a lot of that supply is not moving for this very reason, because for many whales, they've well kind of exited the realm of the money corresponding to things in real life they want to buy. And It's coming more to the idea of instantiating a financial system and contributing to creation of a financial system that's more fair, that's more collective. And so I think that it's always something that gets better with time as well. Like when Satoshi mined the first block, he's 100% of supply. Today, he's much less. And he's also shown that he will not move it. And, you have the same thing with a lot of other coins. So I think it's definitely something to look out for, though, in some of the newer coins, because their supplies are not as fair. And, there can be cases where ultimately their goal is to sell and then never buy back. And that's not the case with the large caps that have stood the test of time, stood in multiple cycles. And it's also not the case with things that are bringing in new innovation, but it is definitely something to be aware of.
Yeah. And we also had a chatter who actually redeemed his channel points to ask you this question. VMS Code said, in your opinion, what is the best research strategy for finding long tail MEV opportunities? I don't know if that's too specific, but he seemed really excited to ask you this question.
Wow. I mean, MEV is so competitive these days.
And chat, MEV is minor extractable value. Maybe you could explain that a bit before you go into it.
Sure. So Ethereum has a lot of on-chain activity, as well as some other layer 1 chains like Avalanche or Solana. And the idea of MEV is that you are hunting the chain for profit opportunities. And these are risk-free-ish arbitrage opportunities. And this is possible because of the nature of transactions occurring in each block. You can kind of, borrow from here to pay there. And so it's an incredible intellectual challenge for people. And, there are kids who, 15, 16-year-old kids with no money, with no capital, who have done extremely well, just kind of hunting the chain for MEV. And so there was sort of a golden period where, if you're a kid sitting in your bedroom in India or somewhere, you can make millions of dollars hunting the chain for arbitrage. Now you have a lot of trading firms in that are, have hundreds of people that are also hunting the chain for these things. So it's a lot more efficient than it used to be. But there are some discords that, they will give advice for people, and there's always kind of this sharing of information. And now there's more capital requirements than before to do MEV. So I would say it's not the golden age of MEV hunting anymore in terms of for an individual, but it's an incredible space, because if you learn Solidity today and you really get into that stuff, you are incredibly in demand by so many firms, and they'll pay you, you know, shockingly high amounts of money to work for them. And that's irrespective of what your degree was, irrespective if your English is your first language or your second language. So I think that's been incredible. And that's been one of the things that I'm so impressed with young people, because there's also an advantage you have over other people, which is that, you know, if in the traditional industry, if there's a guy 38 years old and he's got 10 years experience, he'll always have an edge over you, right? But if you're a young kid and you two race to learn the same thing, the kid usually wins. I mean, I'm sure my daughter will be better at chess than I am within a year or 2 years.
Within a
right?
year?
Whereas,
wow.
I'm not that good. See, that's,
but you won't make her stop when she beats you like your dad, right?
I won't do that. Yeah.
No, so maybe it is a golden age if you're trying to be hired by bigger firms for MEV, but would you say there's any opportunities that are super exciting right now?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity watching what's happening on chain and then kind of, trading on the back of that. So just seeing what people are doing and then going in. That's historically how people have done well in DeFi, which is kind of just follow the smart money, see where the flows are. And similar for NFTs as well, just to see where the flows are. So it's very much a game of hunting around for what's happening.
And when you say see what the people are doing, like how do you know who to follow and trust in this market?
So there's like sites that do on-chain analytics. So like Nansen is one, and you can just get a subscription and then it'll like start showing you data. So if you're data driven, crypto is incredible, right? Because you can track addresses, you can track who's sending where and how, which addresses. Whereas in the traditional system, you can't do that, right? Like you can't track who's selling shares of this, who's buying shares of that. It's all opaque, right? That's generally given a lot of opportunities for people that are just sitting at home and want to do something.
And we'll go back to talking a little bit more about Deribit specifically and get into the chess portion soon. But I saw a general question from someone a little bit earlier that I think my chat would probably be excited to learn about. And they wanted to ask what you think some of the biggest hurdles to cryptocurrency is over the next couple of years.
Hurdles wise, there will be quite a few. I think we're entering sort of the mass adoption phase now, which means that we are challenging quite a few incumbents in quite a few ways. So there's winners and losers. I mean, the criticism of crypto before was either that it was speculative and frivolous or that it was subversive and dangerous.
Right.
And so in the recent events, no one is anymore saying that it's frivolous. We're only saying that, detractors are only saying that it's dangerous. And so you're going to have more regulatory pressure that we as an industry have to fight back and show that net, despite allowing these freedoms, net it's good for society and these kinds of things. And I think we will win those arguments. And I think even when we don't win them, we will challenge them in the courts. And I think in the broad picture, I think crypto is very compatible with Western liberal values of freedom. And that's why we've seen a lot of interest in it from politicians in the West as well, who are more liberty leaning. And so we have that kind of wind that helps us against, the politicians that want to support the existing systems, whether it's financial systems or it's cultural systems. But that will be the challenge as we go forward. And I think it's also on the industry to help educate and help make sure that it's an inclusive technology, right? That it's not just about whales. It's not just about buying and selling. It's also about using, and it's also about making people's lives better. And so I think, the percentage ownership as it gets more distributed as well, that also helps because, crypto is now one of the largest voting blocks in the US, and it's also one of the most widely owned assets for millennials. And as millennials get more power, we'll also be able to kind of fight those battles. So, but it absolutely will be a battle because there are some very interesting questions now of what's going to happen, how are the capital labor nation relationships are all going to change over the next 20, 30 years. There's this great book called Sovereign Individual that was written in 1997.
I'm actually taking notes at this point, but yeah, continue.
That basically predicted all of this because they said that we are entering the information society from the next 500 years. And what that means is that people who know how to navigate the information society will do well, and they'll achieve financial freedom and they'll achieve self-sovereignty. And so this obviously is a displacement as well. So the next few years, this will only accelerate as sort of the problems in the traditional system keep showing up.
I actually have one question that I never really had a great answer to about crypto being something that's more inclusive, which I know is a big part of the ethos, because obviously a lot of the people who are purchasing crypto early on are going to be the ones reaping rewards. And for Bitcoin, you have a limited supply, but also for cryptocurrency in general, the prices will start stabilizing by the point there's mass adoption. So, what do you think about people who are going to be buying crypto later on in terms of having them be able to reap the rewards in some way?
Yeah, so I think the percentage upsides will be lower, but they also achieve reduced volatility and they also achieve more liquidity, right? So there's a lot of interesting things we can think about. For Bitcoin, it's not as useful for someone when it's at $1. You can't do much with it. You can't store your life savings in it because it's only $1, right? But when it's $10,000, already we saw people starting to store their whole life savings in Bitcoin and say, this is something that I believe in, and it's also high enough price and high enough liquidity that I can do so. And now at its current prices, people are able to borrow against their Bitcoin to get a mortgage, and they're able to do these kind of things. So, at $1 million, people will be able to do even more things with it because of the wider market expansion. So you'll get less price upside, but you'll get better liquidity and lower volatility. I mean, during the bear market, Ether was doing stuff like it goes to 180, the next morning you wake up, it's 140, right? And then the next day you wake up, it's $90. So you think from the point of view of safety, from the point of view of being able to use it in more and more places, there's always that risk reward trade-off. And so, in crypto, there's often the idea that, people will look back at the chart and say, well, I could have totally bought it in 2014 and then held to now. But when you look back at like the psychology of the people at that time, you would have had to be an incredible true believer to not touch your coins and to not get flooded out, to not get scared. The people who ironically did the best were the people they just like buy the ICO and they don't touch it, or they buy it and then put it in cold storage. They just don't ever put it on their spreadsheet to calculate their net worth and so on, because then they kind of can just say, I'm making a sort of long-term bet on the future, and I can't be shaken out kind of thing. And so that's why we're seeing now like a lot of on-chain activity is very, very bullish, because they just buy and they withdraw and they don't touch it again. And as long as that keeps happening, what it's saying is that people are not buying it for the 100x. They're not buying it for the sort of gamble. What they're really doing is they're really seeing value in a permissionless system and self-sovereignty. The biggest fear for me was always that we would get overly financialized and that people would not use things on chain, because if that happened, then it would become sort of, subjugated back to the system. And I think we're seeing the opposite of that now, where we're seeing extremely high on-chain interest and sort of hold your own keys interest. And so that to me is a very healthy sign.
Well, thank you for your thoughts on that. Do you mind if we take one more question from the chat?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. So Chase Manhattanback asked, you mentioned the market makers in the stock options market. Who are the market makers in the crypto options market, or how does it work in order to have liquidity?
So there's a number of firms that are options market makers. I think QCP, one of the bigger ones, a few others like Acuna, Galaxy. I mean, these are just trading firms that will make two-way quotes. There's also something called Paradigm, where if you trade bigger size, you can request for a quote and then they'll give you like a two-way you can compare. But most of it is just done on exchange. So you just put in the orders on the exchanges. And so, it's pretty much.
Okay, well, going back to Deribit, who is our sponsor for today, and just a reminder that Deribit is not available for U.S. residents. But Sue, you invested in Deribit, and why did you choose them over other crypto option exchanges?
At the time, they were pretty much the only options exchange that had any volume, and I think it's always had a really strong focus on user safety of funds and user controls. So it's never been hacked. It's never been attacked in a real way. And they're very conservative as well. So they don't list things where people can really lose all their money on. So up to now, it's mainly been Bitcoin and Ether, and they have, high grade altcoins launching soon. So it's kind of been the right environment for options trading and risk management. So I think their approach too has been sort of non-token, which I think, has its pros and cons, but I mean, it's generally trying to protect people, right? Because sometimes if an exchange has a token and then, it also becomes a problem because they need a token to go up, or you know what I mean? It kind of is not just a pure trading venue anymore. And so we like that focus on that. just having a good product to trade options themselves.
And what about how the user experience is? I know that they've put in a lot of tools to try to make it as easy as possible, even for individuals.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's one of the reasons why they've been able to, keep high market share and be just a really simple way for people to trade options on. I think, whether it's holders who just sell calls or, people that sell puts at prices that they'll buy anyways, it makes it very easy for people to use. And it's very consistent in its focus on this kind of thing. And, it didn't dabble in many other kind of, competition in different types of things. So I think that I think that options trading in crypto, it's something that it's one of the best ways for people as individuals to get a sense of the markets and to start collecting yields or to start trading around and on a road to profitability, basically, as opposed to, you trade on a 100x leverage platform and you're going to get all your money lost every 2 weeks or something, right? So.
Yeah, definitely doesn't sound as safe. Suzu, thank you so much for the advice and chatting, and hopefully I can return the favor a little bit on the chess portion. Are you ready for some chess?
Okay, let's pull it up. Yeah.
Oh yeah, let's get your chess.com account. So I wanted to check with you. I had 2 ideas for what we could do today. The first was, well, I think we should play 10-minute time control because it gives us both more time to chat and think. We can play a straight up game where I can let you think, focus your hardest. I can mute myself and just kind of comment my thoughts out loud, and then we could review it. Or if you want to play a more friendly 10-minute game, if you have any questions in certain positions, we can keep the mic open and we can chat about it during the game.
Yeah, let's do friendly. I mean, I was actually today, I woke up like in a sweat because I was just like, this is the first time I'm playing chess on a stream. It's actually my first time on Twitch as well.
Really?
So,
well, oh my gosh,
I was just
I'm flattered. Thank you so much.
So it's like, it's actually the most nervous I've been in some time.
I was nervous that you were going to be here as well because I've really enjoyed learning more about crypto. So I was like, wow, what a legend. I'm glad you were also a little nervous. Okay, let me just fix the window design for a second, and yeah, we'll keep it friendly. And basically, you could even the way I've done lessons in the past is as we're playing the game, you could try to explain your thoughts out loud, and then I could correct something if I think it's off, or just push you to try to find the right move in that position.
That'd be great.
Okay, awesome. And because chess.com gave me admin status, I could also add time if we need to do that.
Okay.
So we could just play it like a longer game. Okay, I was actually lurking your chess.com profile before as well. And you're almost 1600 rapid, which is pretty solid.
It's okay. It's okay. I have this weekly lesson with I have this weekly lesson with a guy, Lance Henderson. He's the youngest Spanish grandmaster.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I have that with a guy named Taiyang Zhang, who's the founder of Ren as well as Rook. So we have that as just like a weekly Zoom class that we do.
Oh, that's awesome. Do you have any friends that you play chess against? Because I've found for a lot of people who I've helped teach in the past, that's usually what motivates them. They just want to beat their friends at chess.
Yeah, it is. So we started like a small Singapore club, like just to play once a week, and then I mean the club's kind of dropped off now because some people are like, other people got too good, so they don't want to play anymore. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's we still have a smaller group that we play pretty often. I actually play over the board with a trader of mine pretty often, about a couple times a week at least. So. Wow,
so you do play chess pretty often. That's awesome.
Yeah, less so online these days, but just, yeah, more over the board.
And what time controls do you usually play over the board?
Over the board, we just play classical usually.
Like 90 minutes?
No, well, like it's more like 10-minute games, I would say. 10, 15. Yeah.
I love the generation of people who started playing chess online, and I know that 15 minutes is now considered long, and I think back to playing like 4-hour, 5-6 hour games.
It's crazy.
But no, 10 minutes, 15 minutes is more fun, and you get to see a lot more positions. Okay, cool. So
you'll challenge me?
Yeah, I'll actually set up the game. Just make sure that your URL says chess.com/live, and then I could set up the game.
Okay, I'll do that now.
Yeah. Do you have a color preference?
Not really.
Okay, I'm just gonna give you the white side of the pieces then.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Here we go. I noticed also that you had the Bitcoin flare.
Yes.
I don't think they have an Ethereum flare, do they?
They need one.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. That red tea opening is actually what I started playing as a kid first.
Yeah, I just prepared King's Indian attack.
Okay, I'll play a symmetrical position. Do you play the King's Indian as black as well?
I play the Nimzo as black.
Okay, because usually people who play this opening with white play it because they also do it with the black side of the pieces. Is this your regular opening?
I learned the Spanish exchange variation as well. Because my teacher just loves the Spanish exchange. He thinks the end game is really easy to play and stuff like that. But I didn't really get into it too much yet. I mean, the other openings, I never really liked Sicilian. So Ty loves the Sicilian. He always plays the Sicilian against me. Or he tries to get into the Sicilian. But
So you don't like playing e4 because you're trying to avoid Sicilian with white?
Yeah, generally speaking.
Okay.
Generally speaking, yeah.
Well, I mean, this is more of like a slow play positional opening, but it works as well. So I guess we'll keep seeing how the plans are here.
Okay.
Okay. And take your time to think. If you need more time to think, I'll occasionally mute my mic and just explain the position to chat, so no rush.
Okay.
Yeah, so his plan here should be to push e4, which he did. I've actually had some really bad losses today. I think I've been getting sleepier since it's almost midnight here. So you never know what could happen.
You never know. Okay.
Let's see how he does transitioning out of the opening here. Okay, he's very aggressive. I don't know if h4 was the best move, but it is a common one. I'm gonna let him play it out here, and I'm only gonna comment if he makes like a mistake that's really, really intense. Okay, do you want me to trade queens and going to an endgame, or should I try to keep the queen on the board and keep the complexity?
Up to you.
So I think your h4 move may have been a little bit too early, because now it's going to be hard for you to kick my bishop out of g4.
Yeah.
Whereas if your pawn was still on h2, you could have kicked it away. One of the things you have to be careful about in this line is just putting pressure on that f3 knight. So I'm going to try to do that here. So
Ooh, I see.
I'm not even sure, chat, what his best move would be here. It almost feels like he has to bring the knight back.
On c3, does that help? Let's see, takes.
Yeah, I'll let you try to calculate that line out. I'm pretty sure if he plays c3, I take, bishop takes, queen takes, bishop takes, bishop takes, rook takes, and then the problem is that e4 is hanging, which is why I think he has to play knight d2. I could be wrong. I think that's the issue with it. So let's see how far he goes into the calculation here. This is actually a very good training puzzle for anybody who wants to try to do it. And chat, you guys can try to think from his point of view as well. So what was the variation you calculated after c3?
So I thought you'll have to move the knight. If you take the knight, then after it takes.
What do you take with? I know it's obvious, but just to make sure we're on the same line.
Take with the bishop. And then you can do queen, bishop takes bishop, or queen takes queen.
So if I take your queen, how do you respond?
Then simply bishop takes queen.
And then what do you think I would play after that?
Then you would.
And or let's say that I would take your bishop on d1, you recapture with the rook.
Yeah.
Is there anything to be worried about in that position? And it's already thinking pretty far ahead, so we could also slow down a little.
I guess you have some knight moves, like.
Yes, it is.
Wait,
it is a knight move after that.
Yeah.
So the problem.
I guess I'm possibly hanging my pawn.
Yep.
On e4.
Yeah, exactly. The pawn on e4. I mean, honestly, this is a pretty long tactic, but I think for that reason, if you go back one move before c3, were there any other options to defend your knight on f3?
I mean, there's rook e3.
Okay, and what other options?
There's also, let's see. There's also, actually, the best is probably just knight h2.
Yeah, knight h2.
Knight fh2.
Knight fh2 is a great move, because you're attacking the bishop and you're defending your knight at the same time.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of a weird move because you don't usually want to put your knight on h3. I know you're looking towards e3 in these positions. And c3 is a very intuitive move. But I think that the takeaway so far in the opening is, in the King's Indian attack, you often want to play h4. Just be careful with the timing.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to go back to c6 so we can continue playing the opening.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm also going to use the admin hack and just add more time so we can keep discussing it and take time.
Okay, so it's my turn now. Or it's your turn. I'm confused.
Oh, sorry. You must have went
so you jump back.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't do a live analysis mode, so when we go back, as long as you go forward, it'll catch you up.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, let's see. I will.
Was it an auto win? It wasn't an auto win, but I would just be up a pawn, and I want it to be a better training game than that. I like this move. It looks weird, but it makes sense, because knight e3 could have been a little bit complicated. I liked knight e3 as well, because if I would take on f3, you could take with your queen and protect the pawn and your knight's more active, but honestly it feels weird to bring the queen out, so this makes sense. Now it's my turn to try to come up with a decent move here. I'm trying to decide whether I want to keep the pin with bishop h5, but I think that could be problematic after something like bishop g5. So I might actually have to give my bishop pair away or retreat. So I'll retreat and try to keep the bishops. My coach would be proud. That's what he always tells me.
Okay. I guess now I have knight g5 to further harass the bishop. And I mean, my plan is to be able just to play h5, h6 if I can't get it. But
right, you are playing the King's Indian attack, so you're going for that.
So going for that. So.
But it also helps to try to come up with like a breadth of options first before going too deep into one variation, just to always make sure you don't miss something.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, a lot of chess players end up getting tunnel vision.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can just develop my bishop too, just play a natural move. And if I provoke h6, it's okay, because it's a weakening for you.
Okay, so you're considering knight g5, bishop g5. Yep.
Yeah, kind of just taking the g5 square. Also,
If you, yeah, we'll keep going with all of the options of move first, and then we could look a little deeper into the variations.
yeah. Let's see, what else can I do? I mean, in theory, I should just move my queen too to avoid the queen trade.
So if
but
I take your queen and you recapture with the rook, you get the open file. So usually,
yes, that's good for me.
yeah, exactly. So that's why you don't want to be the first to trade the queen. But things
Yeah.
like queen c2 could make sense.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I think I would just normally do knight
g5.
Knight g5,
Okay.
just because if you do the pawn, then I can just take anyways.
Yep, that looks like a good move.
And the bishop is the light bishop as well, so
Yeah, you know,
I want to get rid of it.
yes, good bishops versus bad bishops. And for those of you watching, if you're not familiar, a good bishop doesn't have the pawns as the same color as it is. So this is a light squared bishop, whereas my dark squared bishop has a pawn on e5, which will probably be stuck there for a while unless he plays something like f4. So now I have to decide if I'm really going to fight to keep my light squared bishop, or if I should just move something like queen e7 and let you take it and recapture with my queen.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to try to keep my bishop here, though. So I'm going to play a weird looking move. I'm going to play bishop c4.
And now I have some moves like there's a hanging pawn on c5. I could attack with the bishop. The bishop itself is hanging, so I could develop the queen to a4. Don't know if that's a good square to put my queen on long term, but it's an idea.
The thought process out loud is good. It helps me see how you're thinking about it.
Yeah, so I mean, my knight's positions are fine. I could develop my other knight to f3, but I don't have to. There's no reason to. So blocks my bishop again. So I think I like harassing the bishop just because you don't have that many squares actually. Like you'll have to go.
So queen a4, where do you think I would play?
You'll have to play bishop a6.
Are there any other moves I could try?
Yeah, actually, the nice move for you would be pawn b5, and then I lose a tempo, and your bishop is well placed.
Yeah, that's kind of a tricky variation where I do get b5 with a tempo, and then you could put your queen back on c2, and your plan after could be to then kick out my bishop with b3. So you could go for something like that, but if you like that plan, you'd kind of have to go for the entire variation.
Yeah.
Or the other move you suggested with bishop e3, I also like, because you're just focusing on developing pieces that haven't moved yet.
I think the bishop move is safer.
Cool. Yeah, I cannot say anything bad about this move. All right, well, I'm just going to defend the pawn then, and also open up d8 and try to bring one of my rooks on the open file.
Yeah, so...
Also, are you okay holding the mic still?
Yeah, no, I'm fine. I'm using both hands now, so I'm kind of it's a good workout. So.
Physical and mental workout. Chat, he didn't have the stand for his mic, so he's been holding it. He's a trooper.
Because now I can provoke the move using the queen, or I could just right away harass the bishop with the pawn and then try to build a pawn chain, which should be good for me. Although right now your knight is dominated by my pawn on c3, so if I moved it, you'd have more squares. Like your knight could go to b4 at some point. If I did like b3, c4.
Right, yeah. If you'd
I'm
move
not
your
sure.
pawn
And
off of c3, you would give me that d4 square.
yeah, so I think the pawn chain itself is fine as it is. Yeah, let's do this queen move. I think we provoke it just to do something. Although maybe now.
And also, so I hear you thinking of a lot of individual moves. Another thing that is really helpful as you're moving out of the opening into the middle game is trying to think of kind of like a general strategy. And sometimes you don't need to do it, especially if you're familiar with openings. But for example, it'd be a more broader thing like, am I trying to go for doubling the rooks on the d file? Am I trying to push on the king side sooner? Or maybe do I want to go for a queen side attack? And usually if you have that overarching theme, it's easier to find good moves.
Gotcha, yeah. I mean, I guess vacating d1 is okay. Then I can move my rook out later.
Yeah, but I'll also say this is just a really slow, close position, so a lot of it is just slowly improving the position of your pieces. It's not as fun as some of the more tactical lines.
Yeah.
Okay, and now I have to make a decision, basically. Do I want to play bishop a6, or do I want to push b5? And I'm actually not sure what is better here. Okay, so I'm thinking b5, queen c2, pushing his knight away, and then moving my bishop. I don't want to lose my bishop yet. All right, I'm going to go for the fun line. I'm going to play b5.
So c2 is forced. And then...
Yeah, c2 felt like the best option. I'm glad you didn't consider a6, because it's tempting to just attack the knight, but what are you going to do?
Very ugly. It's a very ugly place.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
Actually, one time I first started taking lessons, we first took from a guy named Michael Royas, who's also a really good teacher. Like, he was just too good. Like, he was too good. So he'd say stuff like, oh, like, clearly you don't take the pawn there. It's like, you can retake it later, kind of thing. And it's just, it was hard to follow.
Oh, he was too good of a chess player?
Yeah. So he was like, I think he's probably the guy, like, if you're already really good and you want to get a little bit better, he would have been the guy. But
different levels of coaches work better, I feel, for different student ratings. Yeah.
So I think can I make a bigger threat? I can't really make a bigger threat. Do I want to sack it?
So the reason why I'm trying to kick out your knight now is because I know you have b3 coming to kick my bishop, and I want to be able to retreat it to e6.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I won't get too fancy. I'll just retreat it. I think the best square is f3.
Yep. Did you consider b3 at all?
Just right away. I mean, I think it's worse for me because after takes, you win the pawn, right?
Yep. I just wanted to check that you had considered that. Okay, cool. Yeah, so knight f3, only good move here.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I guess it's time for me to start competing for the open file. And it's actually interesting because I have to make a decision. Do I want to move my f rook to d8 or do I want to move my 8 rook to d8? And this is where the larger strategy usually comes to take place. Do I think I'm going to be attacking on the queen side or the king side?
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with the f rook because I think my pawns are more aggressive towards the queen side, and that might be where the future is going.
Yeah. Interesting. So do I want to kick the bishop first? I think answer is yes, because it's taking up too much space. It controls too many squares.
So if you kick the bishop away with b3, where can I go with the bishop? What are my options?
Um, Actually, the board has changed now with the rook move. You have more space now. You have bishop d3, which is a very annoying move because
Exactly.
the queen has almost no squares. So that is in fact the next threat. So I think probably the correct move is just rook a d1 to prevent that.
Yep. And what? So why are you picking your a rook over your e rook?
And just because it's less active, so this brings it into the game.
And if you move your rook to d1, what happens if I take your pawn on a2?
If you take the pawn on a2, then that would be, it's hard to reclaim it actually.
This is actually a poisoned pawn, so I can't take your pawn on a2.
Yeah, I think the reason is that I think the reason is you get trapped by pawn b3.
Yep. Yeah.
And I just win the bishop outright.
Exactly. I have nowhere to go. Your queen's attacking the bishop. I can't defend it,
Yeah.
so I can't take on a2. And you're right. Your rook on e1 is having some pressure towards e4 and where more of the action is.
Yeah.
Okay. That was a good move. And now it's I feel like I have a good position. I have a lot of space, but I really need to figure out how I can improve it.
Yeah.
I'm considering moves like a5 if I want to push on the queen side. I noticed that your knight on h2 isn't moving, so you'll probably need to reposition it soon. So I feel like I have some time. And I'm also trying to see if you have any threats that I need to be careful of with pushing pawns on the king side. And now you can actually play b3, so I need to consider that as well. Let's see. So my only attempt would be something like b4, but that's just not going to work because you could take it and then my bishop is hanging. So I guess I'm just going to let you do it and go for my plan of trying to get more space on the queen side.
Right. So I guess now, aside from b3 right away, do I have any other options?
Do your viewers usually meme like this?
They are really insane. I'm not even reading it just because I'm gonna.
Oh, sorry. I my chat also trolls me, and I usually assume it's friendly.
I'm trying to focus because I know I'll just laugh too much if I read this.
You'll laugh too much. Okay, yeah, I agree. This is a fun poker.
I mean, so the funny thing is, before this, a lot of people were saying like, if he plays this move, that means he will dump everything on us, or he will.
They were trying to predict based on your chest.
And yeah, so.
That's
I think
funny.
there was like this famous day, like during the March crash. I think I posted this like 10-second video of otters just like flopping down the street in Singapore.
Right?
And then the market crashed from like 8,000 to 4,000. So that was kind of amusing for people.
Okay, please no otters again.
No more otters.
Protect our bags.
Let's see. So pawn move is an option. You will probably retreat. Obviously, I don't want to take rook takes rook because you control the open file with rook a d8. My knight develop is an option, but it's not. It's kind of like an undeveloped almost. Can I take?
I hope he sees b3 here now that d3 is defended.
I think I kick the bishop first because then your b5 pawn will be hanging long term as well. It's a little bit hard to defend for you.
Yeah, I like this move. I think it makes sense to kick out my bishop. I think there was some like more interesting ideas too with like knight d2 if you wanted to kick it out and push f4. But that is a very different aggressive plan that I don't even necessarily think is good here. So I like this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And this is actually a really good middle game position where you basically are starting to need to figure out what your plan
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. So
Chat, let's look at it from his point of view too, so we see his position. So as you can tell, he has a little bit less space on the board, which is hard. He needs to
so
improve
generally
his
I'm
pieces.
still going for the king side attack somehow, but it's you have a lot of pieces on that side now, so it's not really that appealing to overcommit there too much.
That's good insight to question the plans, even if it's a plan you usually do with the King's Indian attack. Definitely, it won't always work.
Yeah. Like there's potential to open up to just like play knight d2 to then go pawn c4, and then after takes, knight takes, and the knight is kind of rerouted to that side where maybe.
And what happens if instead of taking,
targets.
I push the pawn on b4?
Then I think that's fine for me because I just now have a pawn chain that's. I think the pawn structure is better for me.
You also mentioned something earlier that would happen if you push the pawn from c3 to c4. That was a very strong point.
Oh, true. Because it gives you a knight out. It gives you a knight outpost again later.
Yeah, knight outpost with a chess vocab. Nice.
So avoid changing the pawn structure there because right now the pawn is protecting those squares for the knight.
Which might actually give you some insight on what I might try to do, because if I want to get my knight to d4, something I could be considering is moves like b4 to try and, take the c3
to try to
pawn.
force it. Yeah, to try to force it. So I guess an interesting move to prevent that would be a3, because then I could just take, and then you wouldn't be able to retake because your knight will be hanging. I mean, you could do take 6, but you couldn't do the third take.
Right.
Like you couldn't do the second take.
Yep.
So that's interesting. Maybe I tried that.
Yeah, I think this is a nice defensive move against b4, and starting to stop the pawns. It's already starting to become a little bit of a difficult position just because I have more space. But this is a nice way to stop b4. Okay, so if I can't get b4, what can I do here? I do wonder if I could play a4 here. Yeah, a4 might be a really annoying move. So the reason why a4 would be an annoying move, what would happen if you take with the b pawn?
I mean, just after retakes, you can get your bishop on b3.
Actually, a good question here is, if I play a4, you play b takes a4, should you take with the pawn or the rook as black?
Definitely with the pawn, right? Because then you can create a bishop pawn thing on a4, b3.
Yeah, so I think at first glance that looks better because you're getting your bishop on b3,
actually,
and honestly you're controlling d1, so it actually could have some like tactical improvement. But from a strategic point of view, if I would play a4, b takes a4, usually I would want to take with the rook.
I guess the rook just gets much more active that way.
Yeah.
And you're immediately threatening a3, which is now isolated.
Right.
As well.
And then what's the difference between our pawn structure on the queen side? Because you'd have your pawn on a3 and c3, and I'd have my pawn on c5 and b5.
I mean, yours are connected, mine are not, so it's going to be harder for me to defend in the end game.
Exactly. So if I'm going for more of like a strategic play where I'm trying to get by even with one pawn, I would take with the rook. If I take with a pawn, I would make sure that like by bringing the bishop to b3, you can't come to d1, I have some kind of advantage, but I think rook takes would be easier to play.
Yeah.
And then if I play a4 and your other option is to push b4, what should black play after b4?
Black should do. I mean, black has just the immediate tactic, right? Which is bishop b3,
Yep. Yeah. Bishop
and
b3.
which is a lot of pain because well, I guess I lose the exchange.
Well,
It's not
actually,
terror.
I'm gonna make you work out your tactics here. After bishop b3, how can white try to save the rook on d1?
Rook takes rook check, and then the queen moves.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And then you move your queen after.
Yeah.
So then, after that line, I mean, I still like my position better for black.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try it out, or I could do another move, and we could try to keep the position more even if you think that'd be better for like a nice
Yeah.
instructive game.
Sure. Let's do that.
The latter or the former?
Up to you. It's
Okay.
fine.
Okay. I'm gonna play something that I wanted to actually be more of an instructive game. So let's say, and also if you were playing somebody around your level, I don't think they would pick the right pawn to push forward here. So let's say, okay, I also don't want to make a move that's so bad that I'll lose, but I want to do one that makes the game more even. Let me think of what that would be. Okay. Let's say that I do a move like rook b8. Which is a move that I would kind of expect from someone around 14 to 1500 because it looks like you're supporting the pawns you want to push.
Yeah. So obviously I need to fix my weakness, which is what you would have done. You would have played a4 normally. So
Yep.
given that, I think a4 is an idea to just prevent the other a4.
Okay, yep. a4 is one option.
Another option is to just exchange the rook now. And then could also push the
So chat, I hope he also considers b4. It looks a little tricky, but it does do a good job at stopping the pawns. But we're gonna let him think here. This game looks like playing homework. What are you talking about? This is
going a4.
so
Later.
So before you play a4, did you also consider? Oh, so whenever you have these pawns that are blockading each other, there's actually a lot of chess puzzles that have been formed around these pawns that have like a row of empty pawns between. I know I'm explaining that weird, but at least we have it here on the board.
I know what you mean. Usually you push the middle one. I know that.
If it's an end, so you know the endgame tactic, yeah. But it's also important to just try to look through most of the pawn pushes. And make sure you've at least considered them.
Yeah, so I think the C pawn push, it could be okay as well.
The C pawn push, as we've talked about, it does allow d4, but
it allows the knight, but then I would just exchange it at this point.
And what about b4?
b4 takes.
Which pawn would you take with, just so that I follow you?
So black. So black would take with the either one, and then after retakes, the knight can still be attacked after takes, but so takes, and then I'm attacking the knight, but the pawn is hanging, so you would do knight takes. So I think you win a pawn there, right?
Okay, so
If
b4.
I push b4, I think you win a pawn.
So let's say b4, a takes
Yeah.
b4.
Yeah.
How does white continue there?
Let's say c takes b4.
And then
Um,
what are black's options there?
I guess then maybe something like rook c8 to defend the knight and have the rook face the queen.
Yeah, so
Knight.
rook c8 is definitely something I would want to do after I take the pawn.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't end up losing a pawn with b4.
No, you don't lose a pawn. It's still safe because you have the a3 pawn guarding it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the only other thing was with the move you considered with a4.
Yeah.
If you play a4, how would black respond there?
a4, then black plays b4.
Okay, b4 is not a bad option. What about b takes a4?
Yeah, that's also good. And then you again have the threat on the b3 pawn, right?
Exactly. So that's what you have to be careful about with a4, because it's going to open up the b file, which now that I've placed my rook on b8, I have an extra supporter for b3.
Yeah.
So by pushing a move like b4, you're pushing a pawn on the file that I wanted to open. And you know that I wanted to open the file because I put my rook there. So that's why it could be kind of helpful when you're considering where your opponent moved their rooks behind their pawn to think about where they want to open it. Yeah.
Interesting. So b4 kind of is the safest place.
It is, because it's already kind of a difficult position, but for the options that you have here.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So now I have to think about which pawn I want to take with. And I think I need to take with the a pawn, because if I take with the c pawn and you recapture, your queen is attacking my knight. So I would rather keep the c pawn so that my knight is not under attack.
Yeah. Okay, so like we said, I have to do c takes, otherwise it's not good because I will lose pawn.
Yeah, because c pawn is opening up the c file, correct? Also,
yes.
I'm not going to distract you with chat, but someone said when zoo emote, which was nice. Okay, so now if I take on b4, I am probably in trouble. If you want, I could push c4 and we can keep analyzing the game, or I could take on b4 and see if you can win.
Up to you. It's always up to you.
Okay.
I'm pretty chill.
Okay. I always like giving fun options here.
Okay.
Okay. Let's do a little bit more analysis then, actually, because I think this is still a good training position. So I'm going to push c4.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I like.
You guys, I switched boards so you could think about it from his point of view.
Here, like c5, bishop c5. Is that good? Let's see. Some other ideas would be. Let's see, queens. Yeah, I think bishop c5 is interesting because also it adds the defender back to e4. Right now it's only got the queen defending, so there's some spots where I'll lose it later. There's no real knight reroutes I can do now. I think it's kind of just the knights are pretty stuck. I guess another idea would be to try to add an attacker to the e5 pawn via the queen. So something like queen c3 maybe.
Yeah, all of these ideas are great so far.
Yeah, I think it's hard to say which is the best.
Yeah.
But
I will say this is a slow position, so usually you don't have to be as precise here, and you could probably like do a combination of all of these ideas.
Yeah. Let's do queen. Actually, I don't like the queen on the long diagonal because long term I feel like the bishop is facing it.
Mm-hmm.
There's some problems maybe because after I take the pawn, I'm like almost pinned. Like if you allowed it, then my queen would just be pinned to the knight anyway. So it's not that great of a threat. I think what I want to do is double my rooks possibly on this file, just because. Maybe first get my bishop over and then double my rooks because I think your queen. No, but actually, I guess if I do that, it is an improvement of my queen position. I think so. I like c5 as the first move, just because I think it's a strict improvement.
Okay, I like bishop c5. I mean, I think you're thinking about the strategy correctly here. The only thing I would add is you probably do want to bring your horse on h2 into action at some point, especially in these slow positions where you have time to bring them back into the game.
Yeah.
Okay, so I need to move my queen here, which I will... Let's see, where do I want to go? Okay, I'll play queen c7.
So...
Also, chat, just a reminder, today's stream is sponsored by Deribit, and if you found our talk about trading interesting and you want to check them out and you're outside of the US, command Deribit. It's also a link to one of their free educational materials.
Doubling the rooks. Something like rook d2 and then rook e d1 is an idea, but I guess the knight is just so bad on h2 that I'll probably get... I mean, just going knight f1, e3 seems more solid.
So if you would get your knight on e3, and then if I try to play knight d7 and kick out your bishop, what would you play?
Knight d7, you said?
Yeah.
Let's see, so... I got to e3, knight d7. Then I could go knight d5, attacking your queen.
I like the idea of knight d5. I think you have an even better move, though, if I would play knight d7. And you could even imagine it in this position if I play knight d7.
Right, so knight d7 here, I just have bishop d6 immediately.
Yep. Perfect. So then you don't have to be worried about me kicking out the bishop. And I do like your idea of trying to get your knight on an outpost as well.
Okay, let's do that.
All right. So if I keep my pieces where they are, I'm going to have 3 attackers on d5.
Yep.
So at least you won't be able to play knight d5 right away. You could do it if you end up moving your knight off of f3, because then your bishop would also end up defending d5. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to basically put pressure on what I think is the weakest part of your position. Do you have any idea what that might be?
I mean, a3 is hanging.
Yeah.
So that's...
Yeah, you got it right away.
Weakness.
Yeah. Yeah, a3, so it's a backwards pawn, and I'm just going to try to put pressure on it.
Okay. Wonder if just exchanging rooks here is best now. I mean, the pawn is just hard to defend. If I defend it, it's just tying a big piece to it forever. Which is probably not worth it. 2, 4, 6. I think I probably want to take pieces off the board in my position now, just because it's weaker. And I have the A pawn, so maybe long term it's a slightly better pawn to have.
Your instincts are really good. If we remove the heavy pieces, the rooks and the queen, then your pawn on
Yeah,
a3 is less weak since it can't be, attacked from
yeah,
the open files.
yeah. It's same time. There's not too many ways. It's just bad to protect. It's just you just tie everything down. And you'll just have really easy development as well of all your pieces later. I think we exchange it.
Okay, I'll take with my rook.
Okay, so maybe exchange it again. Let's see. Is there an alternative here? I mean, it's such a dry position.
It is a very close position.
This is a. I think I can do. I think I have time to do knight e3 here. There's no real threats.
If you do knight e3,
Although,
it actually, the only thing you need to be careful with when I'm controlling the open file is to make sure that you can still put your pieces on the open file. And the cool thing about knight e3 is that it adds an extra defender on d1.
to d1, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the other option is just to play rook d1 straight away.
Right.
And just like force trading everything kind of thing. But
You also have another weird slow plan that's also a knight move, but it's a weird plan. I'm curious if you can find it.
okay. So obviously knight d2 is pretty bad. So
It looks bad. Knight d2 looks
Yeah.
bad.
yeah, it looks pretty bad, but is there a plan there that's interesting? Well, if you say it looks bad, but that must be the answer. If you say it looks bad.
Yeah, I maybe hinted it a bit too much. I guess it doesn't really work here because you have to take care of knight d4 as well. But the idea
Yeah.
was knight d2 and then knight b1 because you're defending your pawn on a3, but also
True.
you can then reposition your knight on b3 and put pressure on b5. So it's at least a plan worth considering,
Yeah, makes sense.
but a very strange plan for sure.
Yeah, it just feels like an undeveloped, and then also, like the knight there can be really bad later. Like it can get trapped in some spots. I feel, but
It wouldn't get trapped on c3, but the problem with that plan is that it's very slow, and what could I do to react?
yeah, you can just develop. So let's see, what do I want to do now? Let's see. Let's see.
I think your intuitions about this position were correct. I hope I didn't complicate it by making you think of all the knight plans.
I think I'll just do. Yeah, I think I'll just do rook d1, or I can do a knight. I'll just do this.
Okay, yeah. I liked rook d1, but knight e3 I think also works. The reason I liked rook d1 is because you were also defending d4, which seems like one of my more annoying threats here.
Yeah.
Because now I can play on d4.
Yeah.
Which the problem with that is that it would give me some pass pawns.
Yeah. True.
Okay, but let's see. Yeah, so if I play knight d4 here, then it's going to be really hard to defend that as black. Let's see. Okay, let's say another move that I may have considered would have been rook a8.
Okay. So I guess now we have see, we have some ideas to defend it with our queen while also threatening e5. So queen c3 seems okay. It also adds an attacker to the d4 key square. So the problem with that though is that I just directly hang my pawn on e4. So
Yep.
that's just not good. So I probably can't do that. Queen is tied to that. Let's see. So now I can just put the rook on put the rook back to a1. Also an option.
Yep, rook
Maybe
a1 is
easiest.
definitely an option.
And make any threats. Let's see.
I think that's probably his best move here.
Don't really see any threats. Let's see.
This is actually a very tough position for white. I think I'm going to make some kind of blunder after and let him try to play it straight up.
Because if I lose it, I'm going to lose the other pawn relatively easily later as well. And I only really have the rook to be able to save it. So I think I have to do that.
Yeah, I think this was the only move you had here.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play a move that is not good for black, but that I still have chances to. And I'm going to let you try to win the position as white. I won't hint it. And then at the end of the game, whether you win or lose, we could just go over if there was any moves you could have better played. Does that sound okay?
Sure.
Okay, cool. All right, let's try this.
Okay. Just bishop takes is probably best. Bishop is hanging. Can't pawn take, obviously, because I hang the rook. So just do bishop takes and everything's fine.
Yep. Okay. And now it's on me to try to find interesting moves and save this.
Okay.
Okay. So I think I need to start with trading off my bad bishop for yours, even though I wouldn't normally trade when I'm down.
Let's see.
Also, my chat is saying you have a very good ASMR voice.
That'll be my backup career.
There you go.
Bitcoin goes to 0. I mean, this might be forced to trade because if I don't, you just take, and I can't retake unless I defend the rook. Actually, I have some other ideas. I can do. No, I don't really. I think I just take.
Chat, I am going to do it in a more instructional manner because it's more fun that way. Okay, I'm gonna take with the king, which looks weird, but I want to keep the pressure on a3.
Yeah.
Since my only chance here is to basically try to get those passers or win a pawn back.
Yeah. I think my plan is to just trade every piece now.
Yeah, if you traded the pieces, you'd be winning.
Yeah, so the best way to do that is to bring my bishop into the game. Bring my knights to the game. So knight, pawns. Let's see.
Chat, you guys are making some very funny memes. I'm actually curious. I think he might end up winning this. He's been playing very well, and I think giving him a piece for a pawn might be too strong of
I
odds.
just need to get my pieces in. So the best way to get pieces in is just to go knight d1 to go c3. Something like that seems fine. Let's say you push, I still can't take. So maybe the best is to just put my queen back first, just to play a safe move. And then I'm not as worried about the pin.
Okay, so now you're not worried about b4. In which case I need to come up with something more creative. I will. Now I have to see if your queen on c2, it was defending e4, so I need to calculate if knight takes e4 works.
Okay.
Ironically, it's still kind of scary, even though I finally get a chance. It's actually very scary for knight takes e4, because I wonder what happens if you play knight d2 after. I can't take it because my rook on a8 is hanging. So I think I will just play another move instead. Yeah, now it's actually very hard, and I'm gonna have to try to figure out some kind of strategy here. Okay. I think I actually need to also play king g7 at some point, so that when your knight moves, I'm defending h6.
Yeah, the h6 is a discover. It's part of the nice thing about queen c1. So now that's safe. Do we have any ideas here? Like maybe sack pawn h5 at some point? No, it's not good because the knight can take. Not that good of a move.
Yeah, knight goblin, I would.
Have queen. Knight takes pawn.
It's actually not clear to me what his best move is. He does want to trade, but he can't really trade here. Maybe he could try something like rook b1, but then I play queen c5. It's actually not that easy. He should probably
my
get
bishop
his...
is really bad. It's just blocked by all my pieces. If I bring it to f1, is that bad? Is that still bad? It's still kind of bad, although less bad. Your pawn on b5 is now hanging and a weakness for you, so if I can attack that, that's useful. Is there a nice way to attack that?
Since he has to be careful about not losing e4, and he has more pieces, so if he brings him to the queen side, that's probably how he'd win.
Can do... Yeah, I like queen b1 now to just attack the pawn, or is queen
He also
b2
would defend
better?
it. I wonder if he's
Queen
gonna
b2 is
see
also
that.
nice. It hits a new weakness.
Yeah.
E5, which is a double attack piece. So I'm kind of hitting two pieces at once with queen b2.
That's a good move. It's actually a really annoying move. I'm actually in a lot of trouble if he plays that. I was telling my chat how I'm in trouble if you play queen b2, and you played it. Okay. Now I am losing more pawns than I would like. Yeah, I'm curious what I would do here. Hi, Miko. I need to see if I have any tricks. If you trade queens, it's probably winning for you almost.
Yeah, because I can just push the A pawn
Yeah,
later.
yeah. So I basically have to avoid that at all costs. And I guess here, my queenside pawns are the best chance I have at saving this game, so probably would rather give you e5 than b5 if I do it in some kind of clever way. But I'm also considering c3 here. To at least make things tricky. Okay, well, I guess my best chance here is kind of to go for a desperado, things that are not great, but it gives me a higher chance of you messing up.
Sure. Okay, so c3, it's a threat on my queen. Need to check if queen takes b5 is okay here. Let's see. So if I take and you push the pawn, it's guarded, but let's see, do I care? Let's see. Can't really block the site with the knight because the bishop is once can take c4. So
I think queen takes b5 is a very
I
good
can
move
just
for him
blockade it
here.
though with the rook. It will take you some time to get around. So that seems okay to just go rook c1. Although then I will hang my a3 pawn. So, but obviously I know that this is a bad position for you, so there should be a way to not care about that.
Yeah, chat, this is the same game. We've been discussing the games and trying to treat it more like an educational game.
I think it's fine because after you retake the pawn you take the a3 pawn, I can then collect the c2 pawn because I have rook and knight on it. So, and my queen is in a good position too to later take e5. So I think it's just okay. I think everything is safe. The key is that it's a dark square on c1, so your bishop is useless. So you just can't get any combos going, I feel.
Yeah, it's a very tough game for black in this position.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that was a very thorough calculation. Yes, it's c2, rook c1. You saw the hanging pawn, and you saw that you could recapture that, so that was perfect. And now my question is, how can I make this as complicated as possible for you? I think my trickiest bet is probably rook a5. As soon as we trade things off, I think it's lost. I mean, it already is lost, but this is the best bet.
Yeah. Okay, so queen is under attack.
I can't wait for people to tweet that you beat me at chess.
Let me see. I'm sure there's a lot of algos set to market sell if I lose.
Well, we have to make sure you win that.
No, I'm just kidding. Maybe it's the other way.
No, I promise. At this point, I'm trying my best because I'm in a very bad position. So.
Okay, so queen's under attack. What do we want to do? We want to just move in a simple way out of danger. Don't really have that many moves. Almost not many safe squares. I think b4 is one of the only squares.
No, we gave him more time, chat. We gave him more time.
And no other attacks really, so.
Sorry, which square did you say?
Queen b4.
Okay.
I think that's my only square really.
It's very annoying that you're defending everything. I would have at least loved to gobble up the e4 pawn. That would have given me some chances here. Okay.
I think it was forced because the queen has no other square that I could find. I mean, there's b1, which also guards the pawn, but it just seems worse.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so what else can I try here? I have some deep problems in this position. Okay.
This is actually the structure of a lot of my games with Ty, because Ty is much better than me now at this point. And so he'll sack pieces and then try to like win it back. And then I just like try to hold.
Yeah, I mean I when I play my friends who are stronger, I also like playing with some odds. Usually I do time odds.
Yeah.
But it's fun because it makes the games more level.
Yeah.
And also I usually learn more when it's like that, and then they give me tips.
This has been really helpful actually.
Oh, I'm glad. Okay, so is there anything tricky? I mean, at this point, I think I just need to try to play for tricks. So
Yeah.
I'm just gonna try to be tricky here.
Yeah. So I have to find the precise defense of everything. So the idea of this bishop move, why is it tricky? The reason it's tricky is because you later have rook a4.
I shouldn't have told you it was tricky.
Well, I mean
I know, I'm just teasing.
Yeah, it's so do I just prevent rook a4 by playing pawn a4 myself? Does that work? I think it works. Could be the best move. Is there like is there a simpler move? Maybe bishop, maybe knight d5. Is that good? Knight d5 and the queen must move. No, after knight takes pawn. You'll pick up pawn that way.
Chat, you guys are very funny. Please let him win. If he loses, he'll run all our stops.
Pawn a4 is kind of the easiest. You can also do maybe rook c1. Rook c1 just because it's a nice force trade. Like if you do rook a4, I do queen takes pawn. But I do hang a pawn that way, so maybe it's unnecessary.
He doesn't hang a pawn because he wins. Well, I guess he kind of does, but it's easier, I think. I think a4 gives me chances after c2.
No, actually, the problem with pushing it, that then if you go c2 and then I do rook c1, then you can take it with the bishop, and then you have the bishop guarding c2, right?
Oh, that's what I was hoping you'd miss.
So that doesn't work. At this point, do I just like blockade it with my knight? Blockade the pawn, protect the c3 pawn at the same time, and then if you do bishop a4 anyways to attack the knight, what do I do? I don't know. I'm not sure what I do.
If he plays knight c2, I'll play rook a4
Maybe the
instead.
simplest is just to try to force a trade of queens here.
That is the simplest. If he plays that,
Like
he's played beautifully.
Maybe I can do queen c4 here. Does that work?
That's a very solid move. That's a great move. Very annoying.
I just like it immediately, but
I guess the only thing then he has to consider is, can I play rook c5 actually? Yeah, so if I take your queen, I like this a lot for you. My only...
But I guess you can do rook c5 actually.
Yeah, I need to try to keep the queens on the board, otherwise it's going to be very lost for me, so rook c5 is my only move.
Yeah, and then now now I go queen b3 or queen d3. And probably queen.
Does he do queen d3 or queen b3? I actually think queen c4 was the wrong move. I think rook c1 would have been good, and just to go for the pawn trade. Okay. Yeah, so I think queen c4, you did miss rook c5. Your other idea, I think, with rook c1 to trade would have been better.
Yeah.
Even if you ended up losing a pawn in something like that, just trading
doesn't
off
really
the
matter,
queens.
right?
Exactly, you just want to simplify. And that being said, it's not like I can probably save this at this position, but I'm considering bishop b5 or bishop a4. I'm actually thinking quite deeply in this position. c2 is also interesting, but then you play rook c1, and I could defend it, but then you can attack it again later on, so that's not great. Okay, I guess I need to start thinking about tricks again. I have a crazy sack idea here, but I don't think it's very good. I was looking at knight takes e4, queen takes, bishop f5, getting your queen to go somewhere else, and then c2, but I think you still block it at the end there, unfortunately. It'd be fun if it worked. Okay. Alright, I'm just gonna push c2 and try to go for something here.
Okay. So let's see, rook b1. Rook c1 seems just super forced. I have to blockade it.
Yep. And I guess I need to defend it, or I could attack your queen. Let's just try to keep things tricky. I will attack your queen first. Oh, chat, I've just been manually adjusting the clock whenever it gets too low for either of us. There's no increment. I just have admin on chess.com, so I just pop it up. It's a never-ending game. It's basically untimed.
Doesn't have that many moves to go. I guess you want to keep pressure on the pawn. It has no real moves aside from du2 and b3. I guess b3 a little bit better just because if the rook moves later, I can pick up the bishop. So pretty forced as well.
Okay, and now I need to see, can I take on e4 here? Which I think I can, but then you also win my pawn, so that's not great. But you were gonna win my pawns at some point, and you've just been playing well, so there's only so much I can do. I guess, is knight takes e4 my only option here? Okay, I'm looking for any final tricks I could attempt. But I'm not seeing them, so I think I need to go for knight takes e4 here and just try to grab some material back.
Okay. So the only question is, do I do rook takes pawn or knight takes pawn, I think? Rook takes pawn is just super forcing of trades, so I feel like that's my natural inclination. Any other things to consider? Let's see. No, I think it's just clear. This is just the force and then promote the a pawn later, or force you to sack your bishop into it. Something like that.
Yeah, rook takes c2, correct move here. So now I need to decide, can I try knight c3, but you could probably attack it, and that would be...
Yeah.
Although, knight c3 is at least interesting. Okay, I'm going to go for knight c3 here.
Okay.
With my admin powers, I'm going to get another queen? No.
Anything good here?
Honestly, chat, usually when...
d5.
Actually, I won't cut him off.
Is that bad? Do I lose?
Yes, knight d5 loses. You should not play that. What's up, Nate?
E5 also looks interesting. No, actually, that's bad. Just queen takes. I mean, rook takes knight is just cool because after rook takes back, I win the bishop, so I win 2 minor pieces for the rook.
Yes, that's a great move.
And then even harder for you to stop the.
Although it's actually
harder for you to stop the pawn, you just have fewer pieces.
Oh, thanks, backseat driver. I should put another queen on the board. I don't think I can do that.
Although I do give up my a pawn that way, but I think this is still the best move.
Yeah, this is a nice find. I was trying to be tricky with knight c3 to get bishop a4. Again, just going for desperados. But this is a good call. I will say this is going to start to get into an insane endgame if we trade off queens. 3 minor pieces versus a rook.
Yeah, let's see. So this is forced.
Okay. And yeah, I guess I too need to grab the pawn, because if you have the passed pawn, then I can't hope to save it into a draw.
Yeah, okay, so I have 3 minor pieces for the rook. I definitely don't know how to win that endgame that easily. But
I didn't mean for us to get in this crazy of an endgame, but it's actually very fun.
I mean, I can force trade of queens here. Queen takes pawn, which is just forcing. Do I want to do that or not? Do I have a better move? Don't really know.
Why is he grabbing the mic like that? Because he doesn't have a mic stand, you guys.
Do I want to keep more pieces on the board or less? I think I want to force the trade of queens because I think that there's probably some like...
I know, I'm just teasing legitimate.
Do I even have any other options? Knight g4, knight c4. Kind of cool, but I don't really think it's necessary. No, I'm just gonna do the queen takes pawn. This is the safest move.
This is definitely a safe move. There's no way you're gonna lose. I do wonder if trying to keep since you can't really lose, it feels like maybe trying to keep the queen on the board to force a win could have given you better chances. Because at this point, the only hard thing about your position is figuring out how to win.
Yeah, that's true.
Although you actually have quite a few ways to win even like this, so.
Yeah.
Which I will try to avoid somehow. Okay, let's see.
It's just this is a risk management for me. Now I can't lose. So
that's fair. That's fair.
Well, never say never.
No. I don't think you can lose this position. Okay. I guess my plan as black here Well, for example, I'd guess you haven't learned to win with a bishop and a knight.
No,
But yeah, it's tricky, and also since you can't
it's
win with,
really hard. I've learned the two bishops. That's not too bad.
yeah,
You just do that dance with the V shape, uh, and then yeah,
yeah,
bishop knight is really hard. You have to do that like cradling thing. Like you use the king. Like it's called shouldering or something. Like
yeah,
you just take it around.
the W shape. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean Lance taught me like the other one too, where you use like rook versus bishop type stuff.
Oh, so
Where
you've studied some endgames.
yeah, we studied some end games. I forgot it as soon as I studied it, kind of thing. I think if I learned it when I was 6, I probably remember it. But you learn it at this age, it just goes right out.
Well, I learned some endgames when I was 6, and I guess I remembered some of them, but basically, if you haven't played them in a long time and you don't review them, you've had some like
Yeah,
really high-rated players mess up as well.
yeah.
Just
Well, like I heard, queen versus rook isn't even that easy to do sometimes, right?
yeah, queen versus rook can be, although queen versus rook feels like instinctively you can get it. The thing with knight and
Mm.
bishop, if you forget, I think it's harder to figure out on the
Yeah,
board.
true,
Yeah.
true.
But I mean, here, if I could somehow trade pawns, I'd just sack my rook for your bishop if I can. But I don't think
Yeah.
I'll be able to trade pawns here. So it's curious if I can even get a draw somehow. Okay, let's see. All right, let's just start with a basic check. Thank you guys. I appreciate it, Crypto John and Chongli Senpai. I appreciate it. Do I learn anything from
So
games?
king up, just most natural move. Just
I-
develop it anyways. Seems okay.
I mean, I enjoy the games, but I do prioritize when I'm playing
Also
with
block
someone
with
for
the
them to
bishop,
learn.
and then later put the king on g2, which looks maybe a better square for it. Also, because the pawn on f2 can become a weakness. I could get like if I do king h2 and then you do rook a2, it's a little bit annoying maybe. It's a little bit awkward. I mean, it's all the same, I guess.
Okay, bishop f1. Yeah, I mean, you could put your king to g2. It's okay. So, if you would describe your strategy here, what would it be in terms of trying to win here?
I think just king escort the pawns up, and then try to put 2-3 attackers on the weakest pawn you have, because I have 3 attackers, so
Yeah,
I should
exactly.
be able to take a piece.
Once you start, if you're able to win my pawns, you win the game. So, yeah.
Yeah.
If you're able to do that, exactly. Okay, so let's see if I can... I'm going to try to make this as hard as possible.
This pawn structure is good, in theory, good for me, because if I put my king on g2, you just can't check me ever.
Yeah,
So
I had one feel-good check, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So I guess my strategy needs to be to try to make it as hard for you to put any pressure on my pawns with multiple pieces, and try to trade them off as quickly as possible. But sadly, I don't see it. Okay, yeah, I need to trade the pawns. So let's go for something like this.
Okay. So now your biggest pawn weakness is probably on g6.
Thank you, GM Artunian. I really appreciate the raid. Thanks so much.
Something like king g2, bishop b5 to go e8. A little bit slow, but I think that's general idea. I guess. Let's see.
Thank you, Starable Coyote. I appreciate it. Haha, cutie. Is it just you? Thank you, Overshot Lyric. No, I think this is the only game, Night Goblin. You stay for the good vibe, I'm glad. No, I'll still hang out with you guys, Night Goblin. For a little bit, at least. Until I get too sleepy. This has actually been a very fun game.
It's a saga. It's a lot of different parts. Yeah, I think avoid the pin. If you push the pawn, I don't care. I just take. Seems okay. Let's play this.
Aw, thanks, Crypto Data. Thank you. I'm Alexandra Chongli. Okay. King G2 makes sense. You need to get out of the pin. All right. Am I going to ever get any trades in here? It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard. Endgames are actually my favorite part of chess.
I like endgames too.
Very relaxing.
Yes.
Well, at
Okay,
times.
So not at times. Yeah. Actually, I really can't stand endgames and blitz because it's just like, like you're up the whole game and then you like blunder a stalemate or something.
Yeah,
yeah. It's the worst.
It's brutal.
It's really...
But when you have time to think about endgames, that's when they get fun.
Yeah, exactly. I really enjoy studies actually. Like when they have those really hard studies where like the solution is always like the most unlikely move. Those are cool.
I have a crazy study for you if you want me to send it to you.
Yeah, I always like studies. Okay, so I gotta either move the knight or protect it. Protecting it seems not as good just because the knight will have to be on c4, just a worse square. So I might just do knight f3, just like a very safe position. And I think there's nothing you can really do.
Okay. So g5, you're not gonna trade right away, although even one traded pawn I would start being happy with. I wonder if you could checkmate with 2 knights and a bishop. I mean, I know technically you can, and you could probably solve it, but that would be fun.
I think I can figure out. I think 2 knights and a bishop should be doable, just because it'll be fun, but it just controls so much space. I don't know. It feels okay because you can do the knight and bishop, and then you just bring your other knight in. But then you might stalemate. I think the problem is much more likely to stalemate with that many pieces.
Yeah, you have to be very careful. Okay, I have a plan to try and get closer to drawing this as black.
Okay, all right. So, do I take or do I push? Or do I allow take? I think that's the question. Or do I ignore?
Thank you, WeXText. I appreciate it. This is a fun. I legit love endgames. If you guys want to try this,
if I can trade a knight for 2 pawns, that's also good. But can I?
If you trade a knight for 2 pawns, the only thing you have to be careful about is if I somehow trade a pawn and leave you in a bishop and knight endgame.
Yeah, true.
But again, technically, you could figure it out.
But I can't. 0 chance to figure that out.
You played very well, I believe.
Not in 100 moves, I think. Maybe if you give me 1,000 moves.
50 moves for the 50 move rule.
Yeah. Definitely not in 50 moves. Okay, so so taking is bad, I think, because this is a good pawn for me. At the same time, I should have kept the queen on the board. So this is stupid.
That's why I brought it up.
Keeping
the queen, cause you wouldn't. Yeah. I understand that you were trying to make sure you don't lose, but it would have been very hard for you to lose.
It was loser mentality to do that. Yeah.
You're very tough on yourself.
Very tough on myself. No, we actually always talk about like loser mentality when we have a position or trades. It's like, what would like loser mentality be, in a situation? It's something like, when
so what would loser mentality be in a trade?
It would be like if you bought, like, let's say Solana Saft, and then like on the unlock, you just want to take the quick win or something like that.
Oh.
The kind of thing where like it's the easy exit for a small gain.
Got it.
Kind of thing versus waiting through the event itself.
Got it.
It's like to protect a win. Usually the biggest trading mistakes are when people want to protect a win because they kind of, psychologically people over preference lots of small wins.
Yeah.
As opposed to trying to just do the right thing, to do the most plus EV thing. And you find this in all walks of life where people just desperately want to do like 10 wins in a row, no matter how small they are.
Yeah, because it feels good to ensure
Exactly,
a win.
because the brain is neurologically wired to crave multiple wins.
Yeah.
So usually you get punished for that kind of thing. So, anyways, that's what I did.
That's a cool analogy there.
Yeah, it's okay. If I give a check, is that good? You will do king. It does pull your king away. You can't go. It's kind of a nice tempo too, actually. Because if I check, you do king e6 to harass my knight. Then I do bishop c4. Now I have a discovery as well. And your king is further from your pawns. I think I like a check here. And I'm just not too worried about anything per se.
Okay, yeah, I don't like bishop king e6 because of bishop c4, but king g6 was actually what I considered first, but 95 is I could get mated if I play king g6 95 king h5 and you come in with knight f6. That's actually a very cute checkmate.
It's true. Didn't see that.
So I can't let that happen, unfortunately. Okay, maybe there's, let me see after king e6 if I can do anything. But man, that would have been a nice checkmate. Okay. Okay, I think I still have to play king e6 then. Sorry, chat said the mic store doesn't take ETH. Sad. There's been a lot of...
Is there a lot of feedback now on the mic?
No, your mic is great. It was just because you're holding it, so people were joking about that. There's been a lot of funny comments in chat, but that was the first one that made me laugh loud.
You know, I'm really bad with like physically installing things. Like I probably can't install IKEA furniture at this point. Like I wouldn't be able to follow the instructions to do so. It's just really difficult. I don't know.
Or I just feel like you wouldn't have the patience to do it.
Yeah, it's some kind of combo of the patience or whatever. Yeah, like, so I think this mic, when I ordered it came with a stand. I spent like 5 minutes trying to figure it out, and then I just threw away the stand or something like that. And I'm like, I can just hold it. Like.
So now you take calls holding the mic?
Well, I very rarely do podcasts now, so I don't. I mean, if I just do a call, I'll just freebase it, right? Like
okay.
I'll just talk into the computer.
Yeah, no, that makes
sense.
Or
talk into the phone, but for this, I wanted to make sure the audio quality was.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
To the standard of such a stream. Yeah. So this is just forced. This is just the solid.
Okay.
Solid setup. I feel, because I can have a double check too.
You can have a double check.
Which are always good. Usually.
Yeah, this is starting to get tricky. Okay, I think so I need to consider if I want to attack your bishop or if I want to try to grab some pawns or get out of check. Not a lot of options. Okay. I think that loses. Okay. I'm worried that if I take on h4, it's going to hurt my chances of trading off 2 pawns, which I think is one of my better drawing chances.
True.
But at this point, I don't think I'll trade it another way, so I guess I'll go for it.
Okay, so the only question is, take with the knight, take with a pawn, or first give another check. Let's see. I think I mean, taking the knight just seems better because then I'm attacking your other pawn immediately, and it can get a little bit awkward for you.
Yeah, you also have a really nice pawn structure.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to keep my pawns connected, so pawn takes pawn is bad. So, because I need to keep the pawn threat alive. So I like giving a check first. Give a double check first, and you can't move toward me. You'll probably go f6, and then I take with the knight, and because it's a light square, I will be able to collect it pretty easily, most likely. I think that's what it is.
I'm just banning someone in my chat.
How many people have you banned so far?
This is the first one.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
so they weren't too rowdy.
No.
Okay.
Okay. That was a good move. I don't think I'm gonna get my pawns off here.
I was taught early on that if you can do a double check, you almost always should. But that's probably like it's gonna hurt me at some point.
I've never heard that before.
Well, it's because I do a lot of tactics, and when you do tactics, the answer is always a double check.
Oh yeah. If
Like,
you're solving for puzzles, for sure.
Yeah, so I'm a simple man. I see a double check, do it.
That's reasonable. I do think sometimes though tactics then train bad habits though.
No, it definitely does. It definitely does. Definitely does. Okay, so I collect with the knight now.
Okay, now my pawns are in a bad position. I was trying to trade, but you didn't let me get away with it. Okay. This is going to get very ugly. I think you're very close to just winning. Okay. Here, I just have to try a couple more things.
Okay, so bishop under attack. Obviously I want to add pressure to your f5 pawn. So bishop d3 seems the most natural. At the same time, are there any better moves? Are there better moves? How are my checks? Knight checks d5, knight checks h5. Both these checks look pointless. Maybe not that pointless because your king has to move. And there's not many good places to move. But then I might hang a piece that way. So
The fear.
You've
come so far.
I've come so far. I'm gonna stalemate this, pretty sure.
No.
I would hedge here. I would buy some stalemate options on myself.
Yeah.
To just hedge it in. No. All right. So I mean, knight h5, kind of interesting because the king can't go to g6. So if the king goes back, then it's nice for me, right? I can just put double pressure on f5 and take it. I feel like space-wise, it's a nice control because I also blockade your h-pawn. And so I think just taking space-wise, it's kind of nice. I mean, if you do king e5, then you're kind of later on just like completely abandoning your h-pawn. So I think I give a check first. It's reasonable here.
Okay, and if I play king g5?
Play king g5.
I think you have a cool forced mate if I try to win your knight, actually. Oh, wait, maybe not. Maybe not. Never mind.
No, I guess what I have is yeah, so if you go there, I just do pawn f4 check, and then if take the knight, then bishop f7. Is that
f7, I could go to g4, but you do have a
true?
mate on e2, which is actually
Right.
very pretty.
That's cool.
That is a very
That's,
cool mate.
yeah. Oh yeah, of course, because I need to cover the escape square. Yeah. So the bishop. Yeah. If you come king. If you come king g5. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
True.
don't think I can avoid it, so I cannot do that.
That's actually interesting because my initial plan was just to defend the knight with the bishop if you
Right.
came for me, but it turns out that
You could just checkmate. But I mean,
mate.
bishop f7 would have been fine as well. Okay,
Yeah.
so I guess I need to run and not get checkmated, so here we go.
Okay.
Alex, whose team are you on? I mean, this whole game has been about chatting casually and like trying to give some chess tips.
So, knight check on g6 is bad because I want to control space. I want to have pressure on f5. Bishop, just keep leaving it there. Maybe pawn f4 check. Yeah, pawn f4 check is good because you just keep having to move your king to a worse place. Like if your king abandons your pawns, then I just win. So I need to create the abandoning of your pawns.
Yeah, I don't like that I'm being forced away. Okay, well, I don't have any squares to defend it, so I gotta go to d4.
I think now it's kind of forced to just go e6, but let me think of something better. I guess e6. E6 seems the most reasonable, right? But is it even necessary? Let's say you rook harass it, then I just bishop takes. If you rook protect, I also don't care. So I just do the... And everything is safe, I think.
Yep. Okay, so now I can't defend anything anymore, which is rough. Okay. Alright. I'll try this. I think I have one last trap I can try here.
So I can either bishop takes or knight takes check first. Knight takes check first is... It's interesting. You can't approach me because I control every square. And then I'm also attacking h6 after. Is there a trick here? Let's say there's a trick.
I more mean like trick in this endgame if I somehow am able to pull off any last sacks on your two pawns, but that's about it.
Yeah, yeah. So bishop takes pawn is the simple move to do. But
Sue said he was gonna get destroyed. I know, but we didn't play a straight up game. We did more of a lesson.
A little bit of an awkward position because after rook, like you probably do rook a5 to just attack two pieces, I guess.
So chat, my only chance is to somehow sack my rook for 2 pawns, and then
As
he
long
has
as
to
it's
try
like-
to checkmate, which is a little more complicated. No, he's very close, but he's being thorough, which I respect. I know people
I guess
are
the
already gonna.
knight check benefit is that my knight is on a better square and it's attacking the pawn, and you can't approach me anyways. So I think, and also it's just a nice structure that way. Yeah, I think we just do that.
Okay.
Okay. Now bishop hanging.
Mm-hmm.
We have some cool moves like g7 to just defend everything, but does that work? No, because after rook takes bishop, knight takes, and then knight hangs. On the other hand, the nice move is knight f, g7, just protects everything. Just a nice position. The pawn is blockaded. I go collect it with the king later. The bishop is guarding. The bishop blocks the 6th rank. You just win. Do that.
I don't like the sound of that.
Yeah.
For myself, not for you.
Okay, we'll do it then. I think this is fine.
Okay. Yeah, that is a nice move, and I like this better than the other knight moving also.
Yeah.
Okay, so what can we try here? Okay. At this point, I'm just going to try defending moves. I don't have a lot of traps, so I think you'll finish it off, but I want to see the finale.
Mm. So we just want to win. So we want to promote.
Sorry, guys. I did miss some donos. I'll read them at the end. My bad.
Your rook and your king are on different. You can just keep it on different colors. No, there's no real forks. It's hard to collect the pawn. It's just awkward because your king is kind of covering f5. And so if I can't bring my king over to collect the pawn. If I move my knight, then my bishop is hanging. So it's all a little bit awkward. It's either pawn g4 to go king g3, or it's pawn f5, I think. Does it even matter? It might not even matter. I think it's all winning, probably, at this point.
I feel like it's almost all winning, yeah.
Yeah, it's almost all just winning. I guess pawn f5 is a super safe move. Bishop pawn. Also simple man. If you create the bishop pawn pair, you should do it. f5. Just take away a square from my knight. Then my knight can move now permanently because the bishop is. And if you trade it off, I still have a pawn, and then I just win. Because you didn't manage to trade it off all the pawns.
Yep.
So okay, let's do it.
Yeah. F5 I think is the most straightforward here, since you're protecting almost all of the squares. Okay, so let's try this.
Okay. So I think h3 is probably forced here.
Yep.
Just hide behind. Now what do we have? We just push all the way and we win. Can we do that yet or no? We don't cover the promotion square. F8. On the other hand, we can just block everything with bishop f5 type moves. And if you sack everything, I promote anyways. So it's like you just promote, I think.
Yeah, this is hard. Okay, what is the most testing move? That's why I don't like doing tactics when the computer gives the solution, because they often don't do the most challenging move for humans to find. Let's see if there's any other stuff I could try to test here. I don't... Do I have any stalemate attempts? Not really. Okay, I'll play here.
Okay. So obviously if you sack, then I just win anyway, so I'm not worried about the sack. Yeah, so the bishop blockade idea, the f5 check, and if takes, king takes, pawn promotes, then it's win. So bishop blockade and then just push seems to be just the right idea still. I think that works. Okay, and then I think I can just push. I think. There are any stalemates coming. Wait, am I gonna get mated? Hang on.
Did you see how silent I was?
Whoa. Yeah. It would actually be so bad to play so slow the whole time and then just like promote here.
No, yeah, that would be brutal. But you didn't, so it's okay.
Okay, so I just need to, I mean, this is forced. I have to do king h4, and then I have an escape via the bishop block on h3, right? And then that's just, should just be safe forever.
Okay, yeah, the mate was spotted.
Okay, what's your plan now? Bishop. There's no mate, right? There is no mate.
No, you're right. That's good. I don't have any mate here, and I don't have any stalemate. My last attempt is foiled.
I need to keep your rook. Alive. Like if your rook dies, maybe.
Actually, okay.
The chances of stalemate.
I could technically still try for a couple stalemates
no, that's okay.
here. Let me just see if there's any last tricks, but otherwise, I think you got it. Yeah, I don't think there's any last tricks here for black. I think you played this game after the piece sack beautifully. Let's see. I'll do my final check.
Final check.
Yeah, also some people
After
might check got
takes.
confused with the mate. Yeah, I don't think there's any more stalemate threats here. I think at this point I would give it to you. Nice job.
Thank you.
It
probably would have been easier if I had the queens on the board, right?
Yeah.
Or
yeah, I think here I could actually go back to
yeah.
1 second. Let me see if I could do analysis and invite you to it. It might have to be live analysis.
I really appreciate your help.
Of course. You did an incredible job, too. Here, let me invite you to the analysis. Let's just see if there's anything you... Other than keeping the queens on the board, I think you played it really well. When you played queen c4, you had an easier position there as well, but... Okay, I invited you. Okay, so let's go back, I think. Okay, so... this was played super well. Queen b2. You see the pieces moving, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, so queen b2, this was a beautiful move, key move to find. Because you did have to win one of the pawns at some point, and that you did correctly. Okay, so here... Queen c4. I think you were talking about considering rook c1 as well, which may have been slightly better. But honestly, even after you played queen c4, it was still okay.
Yeah.
This maybe would have been a little bit cleaner.
Yeah. I mean, it felt wrong actually after I did the queen the queen move.
Yeah.
Because this just seems awkward, but
I could have tried to be a little bit trickier and not push c2, because c2 was kind of a weakness. I could have been a little bit more patient. Let's say something like queen a5, and I'm really just sitting on the position.
Yeah.
But after I played c2, you played all of this really well. You saw this tactic, and also rook takes c3 was a nice find, so that was impressive.
Yeah.
And then here. Yeah, knight takes... Well, actually... Oh, maybe I was wrong. Maybe you can't even take knight takes e5 because of rook a5.
Yeah.
So maybe you would have had to put pressure on this pawn with a move like knight c4.
Yeah.
But then maybe I get...
But that's really hard. But that's really hard to find.
Yeah.
I mean,
so actually... Maybe queen takes e5 was correct, as long as you knew the plan, which you did after we talked about it, which was to use your 3 pieces to attack a pawn. So actually, in hindsight, I think after
actually, yeah. If I had done knight takes pawn, this probably losing.
Yeah, no, knight takes pawn is losing. I was thinking more if you would have put more pressure on the e5 pawn and kept it.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was very well played. And the endgame was so clean. Knight d5, bishop c4 were some nice finds. Well, yeah, I'm impressed. The level of chess was good. What did you think of the slow play? Because I know you usually play like 10 minutes or 15.
It's fine.
Do you have a preference? Or?
I mean, I don't play online that much, so I just play over the board. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining and having this be your first Twitch stream. It was really entertaining to...
It is really stressful. This is the most stressful I've been like in years, actually.
Wait, really?
It's pretty insane. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I didn't
no,
want
it's
you
good.
to be
It's
stressed.
good. No, but it's good though. It's cathartic.
Okay.
You know, it's like
you feel good now that it's over, right?
You feel good that it's over.
The chess wasn't as bad as you expected, right?
Well, I think if I played you without the friendly talk, like it would have been even more stressful. So this was good.
Okay.
Because it's like a nice pace. I feel like I learned a lot here.
Okay,
and,
I'm glad.
I mean, you're really good at explaining chess, I think. So.
Okay, I'm happy to hear that. I know it's intimidating to come play chess in front of a big audience that like is very backseaty at times. So very nicely done. I didn't know you were stressed, but I feel better that it's cathartic now. You did seem very calm. Chat has been very funny since you've been here. But I will let you go soon. If there's anything else you'd like to say about Deribit that you think would be helpful for people to know, now would be a good time.
I think that's it. We covered it.
Okay, awesome. Well, hey, if you ever have any questions while you're teaching your daughter's chess, feel free to always ask. I taught kids for a while, actually. That's how I started teaching chess. Because my dad used to have a chess club for young kids when we were in Oregon. Okay. So it's kind of like the family thing to teach.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely do that.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And have a nice rest of your day.
Yeah, you too.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye.
All right. Bye.